Hey guys, what's going on? It's your good buddy Sam, and look at this. Cycle tilde cannot set frequency, number is not finite. What cycle? Don't tell me what to do. If I want an infinite frequency, I'll get an infinite frequency as soon as I figure out what that is. But apologies to Max and to you, listener, if I sound more, shall we say, agitated than usual today. I'm trying to not drink coffee, and oh my god, going without coffee, it's like going without love, man. It just doesn't make any sense. In any case, yes, we're going to be talking again about this Our Techer potentially patch today and looking at how to break it down some more. And quick reminder, if you're around Wednesday, tomorrow at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, come to mixler.com/flotsam and listen to music with me. It's going to be a good time. Okay, so enough of that nonsense. Let's look at this patch. Laid out before us now, we have an infinite, a smorgasbord of different, we're at a giant sound buffet and we could munch any of these tasty morsels as we please. But this one's got this nice yellow thing and it's this sunny yellow thing. It seems like just the right thing for my under-caffeinated morning. So I'm going to go with that one. I'm going to grab this guy and just so we can look at him in isolation, I'm going to get this guy and Phaser C. Because I see down here, this guy depends on Phaser C count. I'm going to copy this, close this patch, make a new patch, paste this in, and then let's take a look at what we're dealing with here. So I mentioned in the last tutorial, the one where we kind of looked at the basics of this patch, that the whole patch that we were looking at was based on phasers driving cycles. And this is a spin on that. This is two phasers with a SAW, or a sample and hold object, driving one cycle. You actually got two of those and they're slightly out of phase, which is super cool. I mean, we'll talk in a second about what all that means. You'll definitely need headphones for that, by the way. But so what's going on here? How does an arpeggiator work? Let's take a listen first just to this arpeggiator and then we will talk about what's going on between these two. So let's turn up the volume a little bit, turn on this DAC. You should be hearing one, maybe two pitches. Maybe three. I think I hear three pitches. One of them is just very, very low frequency. And if we look at what's going into the cycle object, we can see, yeah, it looks like one pitch is 3 something, one is 6 something, and the other is 17. So no surprise there that the pitch at frequency 17 is not one that we can hear. But what's actually going on here? So if you took this SAW out of the equation, all you would have left is one phaser driving a cycle, and that would just be your run-of-the-mill vanilla frequency modulation frequency sweep, and that would sound like this. That's us modulating the frequency of this cycle from 0 up to 1,000, 25 times a second. It sounds like that really bubbly frequency sweep that you might expect. Then we throw this SAW in here, and what we end up with is discrete steps. So if you look at the output of this phasor raw, we may have to tone down the frequency a little bit so we can see what's going on. DSP should be on. Yeah, you see it's a bunch of little peaks. Now let's turn down the frequency just a little bit so we can see those a bit more clearly. See, there are the little peaks. Now you look at the output of this SAW object, and instead of little peaks, you have discrete steps. So what's going on there? Basically what this SAW does is it does this operation called sample and hold. It looks at the number coming into its left inlet here and grabs that number whenever this number makes a transition from being above 0.01 to being below 0.01. So what does that mean? It means that at a rate of about 15 hertz, this phaser is grabbing new values from this phaser and then using that to drive this cycle. And that's why you see the stepped output that we were looking at before. So I promised in the last video that we would talk a little bit about how to add handles to these things so we could play around with them. And one handle in particular that's useful here is we can look at the ratio between these two numbers. So right now I could change the frequency of this one and I could change the frequency of this one, and the effect that it's going to have on the sound is going to be somewhat difficult to predict. So here's 15 and 25. And you can hear that as I change each one, not only does the rate at which we're picking new notes change, but also the pattern changes. It's going up, then it's going down, then it's not going at all. Maybe that's what you want, you know. I mean, it's your patch. Do what you want to do. But it's also potentially possible that you'd like to have a little bit more finessed control over this patch. So the way to do that is, instead of setting these two separately, to set them together and to realize that really what's important is actually the ratio between these two phasor values. So let's do exactly that. Instead of working with one frequency value going to this phasor, the other frequency value going to this phasor, let's instead just work with one frequency value and multiply it by some other number. That number being the, the ratio. So all we'll do is throw in a pack here. Pack is useful because it will update whenever either value changes, and we'll give it the default values of the ratio of, let's see, in the original patch is 25 to 15, which is 5 to 3, which is 1.667. Oh my god, I'm a math genius. And the value is 15. So with default values of 1.667 and 15, we're going to multiply those values together to be the input to this phasor. And we're going to take the second value and have that be the input to this phasor. So now whenever either of these numbers changes, whoa, don't want that. Now whenever either of these numbers changes, we are going to update both phasors. That's what the pack does for us. And what you should hear is a little bit more control over the arpeggiation. So this is the original arpeggiation. It's 25 to 15. No, the ratio isn't 25 to 15, it's 1.16667 to 15. Cool, but now as I increase this number, you'll hear importantly what's happening is I'm not changing the actual notes in the arpeggiation. All I'm changing is the rate at which the arpeggiation occurs. And now I can change this number. And I'm changing the notes in the arpeggiation, but not the rate of the arpeggiation itself, which is pretty cool. Now, one more thing that we could potentially play around with is the difference between these two phasors. So what's determining, if you think about it, what's determining which notes you actually play in the arpeggiation, what determines those values is both the number that you start at. I mean, imagine you have a series of numbers, right? Say, the rules with the arpeggiator here is that we're picking different frequencies for the cycle, and those frequencies have to be evenly spaced. So like, say, 10 to 110 to 210 to 310, all separated by 100. That's what this ratio here is really determining, is the difference between those two numbers. The other thing that's important to talk about is the number that we start with. So if we start with 10, we get 10, 110, 210, 310. But if we start with, say, 95, then we get 95, 195, and so on. And what determines that is the difference in phase between this phasor and this phasor. And right now, those are both being set to 0.01. But if we wanted to, man, why don't we get fancy and make that into something different? You know, let's go crazy here. So I'm just going to make a little room for ourselves in the most devious way possible. Because sometimes my patches are super clean, and sometimes, man, sometimes they get mucky. What was I even doing? Man, the uncaffeinated brain is not at all cooperative. It just wants to take what you're doing and then make it do nothing. Okay, so we have these two phasors here. They're going to the side. Oh, that's right. I wanted to change the phase between the two. So what I'm going to do is add in a new parameter here. And this parameter is going to be my phase difference between this phasor and this phasor. So whenever this value comes in here, I'm going to want to pack that in. Let's pack 0 with the number that I get in there, 0.01, say. So this number comes in. I pack that with the new phase, the phase difference value. I add those together to get the value that goes into this phasor. And I just take the, second of them. Oops. To get the value for the phasor on the left. That's all we have to do. And now we've got the difference in phase between the two. Rhyming like a badass motherfucker. All right, so that looks pretty good. That's not even as messy as I thought it was going to be. It's my patching instinct is just so strong. I can't make a messy patch. It's incredible. I should be studied or feared. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Let's hear our arpeggiator again. Cool. And now if I change this number, you'll notice maybe that I'm not changing the difference in hertz between the pitches, but rather just the bass pitch. Anyway, that's what that's doing, and yeah, it's a pretty useful technique in this case. Cool. So with all that under our belt, the last thing that we should probably talk about in looking at this phaser here is the fact that this guy says 0.01 and this says 0. What's up with that, man? How come this one's got to say 0.01 while this one says 0? Well, if you listen to this patch, what's really cool about it is that by inserting a slight phase difference between these phases on the left and these phases on the right, you actually end up with a really cool binaural kind of sound, and you don't hear it unless you have headphones on, or at least you won't notice the effect very strongly unless you have headphones on. But if you want, go grab a pair and we'll listen together. It'll be fun. We'll bond together over how interesting this effect is once it gets up and running. So go ahead, grab a pair of headphones and listen to the difference. So this is with no difference in phase between the left and right phasers. This is with some difference in phase. Hopefully you can hear it. There's some really interesting kind of stuff going on with one ear kind of dominating over the other and a slight difference in pitch. It's super interesting. And by far one of the cooler things that's actually going on in this parent patch we were looking at. So, but supposing we don't necessarily want the phase difference to always be that. Supposing once in a while that we would like for it to be something else. Say instead of 0.01, 0.0, I don't know, 2. Or let's get really crazy, 0.026. You know, it could be anything. So how would we do that? Well, as you might imagine, it's not actually that complicated. Excuse me while I just do some prophylactic cleanup here. Prophylactic cleanup, also what you might do after a fun evening with a special guest. Okay, let's see. Apologize for the grossness as always. So that's a piece of cake, right? Simply every time this number comes in here, we want to pass one value after these guys, a different value after these guys. We've already seen the pattern for doing that. Just grab a pack. Grab a pack. It's like a Go-Gurt commercial. Just grab a pack. Why would I think of a pack of Go-Gurt before a pack of beer? What does this indicate about my deviant worldview? Okay, we'll send this into here. And then, yeah, just like this. Piece of cake. So this will be the difference in phase between left and right. We will pass default values of 0.01 and 0. So now every time the metronome, every time we get an impulse to reset from this phaser here, we will make the phase on the left of these leftmost phasers equal to the sum of our phase offset and 0. I'll get ready for some kinky patch chords. Yeah. Oh wait, we don't want to do that. I want to feed that in here. Right. And on the left, okay, hold on. We actually have to copy all of this junk onto the left as well. How are we going to do this cleanly? Okay, I'm going to move all this down. I'm going to move all this down. And then basically just, I don't like you. Basically just duplicate on the left everything that we have here on the right, and then move the patch chords over. I think that's the best way to do this. So we'll just copy all of this over. Move this over here like so. This into here. This into here. It's annoying that it doesn't copy, it's copied certain patch cords but not others. Well, I guess because of the way I did it, I could have done it smarter. Okay, phaser C count, and this is the difference in phase between the two, and that's got to go into, oh wait, that's the sum of the, okay, I've got this backwards. The sum goes into this one. I guess it doesn't really matter, but let's say the sum goes into this one, and the raw phase value goes into this one. And we'll do something here, like just do POC 0, and then, yeah, that looks fine. Cool, so that just guarantees that our phases are going to be set at the same time in the same way. And then I promised I would do this right, so this needs to look like this. This needs to go like this. This is the difference in phase between the two. Oh, I see. So this is the difference in phase between the two phasers. Oh man, did I goof this horribly? Oh no, did I goofed it. Oh, I goofed it so much. No, it's okay. It's okay. This should just still be a plus. This should still be a POC. Okay, we're okay. We're okay, calm down. That's already been added together. That's taking just the, okay, nope, we're perfect. This goes into here. God, didn't you hear it in my voice? I got so nervous there for a second. This should just actually be going into here. That's all. Everything's fine now. Oh, thank God. Okay, cool. Think we are about set. That gives us 4 nifty little handles onto what's going on in this patch. And those are, let's see, it's the arpeggiator ratio, arp ratio, not Raytion, arp ratio, the arp frequency, or arp rate, I guess, arp phase, and this should be the binaural phase. Binaural phase. Cool. Okay, looking good. Everything's looking very exciting. This down here, by the way, is just some good old-fashioned, it's just an LFO on an amplitude. LFO on a cycle to modulate the amplitude. And now let's take a listen. Set the binaural phase to 0.01. That weird, ghostly, in-between binaural phase thing. We can also set this to, I don't know, 0.04. Get even crazier stuff going on. And finally, I noticed a mistake here. This phaser C count, this shouldn't say select 0. This should say select 1. But that's okay. And this, of course, this bang here just resets the phase of both of these phasers. And that's it. We did it. We did it. We turned this little part of that Autechre patch from a crazy torn up mess into this lovely little thing here that, you know, it's a little bit messy, but at least we can kind of see what's going on. We have these cool handles up here that we can play with to modulate different parameters of our arpeggiator. So that's very exciting. I'm going to save this as arpeggiator morsel 1. Cool. So now what we can do is basically just, well, you know, now we can encapsulate this, right? So we should just take everything in here, Control-Shift-E, and encapsulate that. And we can call this binaural arpeggiator, which is pretty cool. Of course, Max has decided that the order in which I had my inlets is not the order that it wants. So the ARP phase should be number 3. Binaural phase should be number 4, and reset should be number 5, like so. Yes, that's much better. Cool. Now, if we wanted to get really completist here, we could go into these inlets and actually change the comment here. So if I change the comment here on this inlet to be arpeggiator ratio, now when I hover over this inlet, you'll see it says binaural arpeggiator ratio. Isn't that cool? So you can label your inlets and outlets like that. Cool, so let's just tighten this up a little bit by putting these up here like so, and bringing this up here. Okay, looking very exciting. There's our LFO modulating the amplitude of both of these outputs. DAC, the reset, the parameters of this phaser. Look at that, very, very exciting. So now I should be able to grab all of this, copy it, let's save this, close this patch, open back up the cleaned up version of our that Autechre potentially patch, make some room for the arpeggiator we just made, delete this, paste this in, and look at that, very, very exciting. And now for completion, what we should do is make the ARP ratio 1.666667. The ARP rate was 15, the binaural phase 0.01. Actually, this isn't going to do anything. I'm a big fool. What I want to do is add it to the preset. So to add it to the preset, I'm going to first click this preset, and then make sure these are all set correctly. It looks like they are. And then save the preset. Now let's push space and make sure everything sounds the way it should. I have no idea what happened, but I think it's basically fine. Cool, so let's save this as our cleaned up one. Yes, and congratulations, we've done it. We are slowly and gradually going to gain dominion over this whole patch, and eventually we'll have nice handles like this for everything that's going on in this patch. We'll be able to play with everything. It will look and feel amazing, just like that skin-tight mankini that I'm slimming down to fit into. So thank you for watching once again, and yeah, again, mixlr.com/flotsam on Wednesday. It's going to be fun, and hope that was informative. I will see you guys very soon.